Redfall has been something of an enigma for quite a while. Announced with a fancy cinematic trailer quite a ways back, it feels like for the longest time we had no idea what it was going to be. Then, as more footage became available, there was a feeling it was going to be a spin on the Left 4 Dead style of genre. This line of thought was corrected with the Xbox Developer Direct in January, showing a game that has more in common with Borderlands than Valve's 4-player Zombie Fest. But there were still concerns that the game didn't look Arkane enough, that it didn't have that unique DNA that all of their games seem to have. Well, I've played 90 minutes of it and can confirm Redfall is an Arkane game through and through, and seemingly their most ambitious title yet. Thanks to Bethesda Australia, I was allowed to join them in their Sydney offices and tackle 90 minutes of Redfall to get a taste of what is going on for myself. My time started at a point a few hours into the game, which allowed me to play around with a level 7 character that already had a few abilities unlocked, so I had a good idea of how things will play out. When it came to character choice, I went with Remy, the Latino robotic whiz that has a C4 charge, a handy robotic dog, and a healing AoE that makes for the perfect team player. That isn't to say that Layla, Dev and Jacob weren't appealing, because they certainly were, but I thought Remy's skill set would allow me to see as much of the game as possible in my 90-minute time frame. I feel like I made the right call because I was able to see a fair bit without dying too many times, thanks to both my robotic pal who distracts enemies and the healing special, both of which save my bacon on more than one occasion. That's because combat is surprisingly tough. There are two main enemy categories that I encountered, vampires and humans, both of which are split up into a host of different subtypes. The humans are much as you would expect, blokes with automatic weapons, shotguns and pistols, looking to get in good with their blood-sucking overlords. Easy to take down, they make up for that by swarming players in groups. As for the vampires, well, things are much tougher here. Even the most basic vamp takes a little more effort to bring down, with health needing to be whittled away before a stake can be driven through their heart. Other ways to kill a vamp include setting them on fire or freezing them with a UV lamp and shattering them. It is when the two groups joined up against me that things really got interesting. I was forced to switch tactics and weapons on the fly, as well as make full use of my special abilities to get through a lot of these encounters.
Oh, a dollhouse? Definitely a 10 out of 10 on creepy. What's that inside?
Speaking of the vamps, there are a host of specialised, stronger vampire enemies that really take some work to put down. The sniping watchers, exploding blood bags, and freaky angler are just to name a few. One, the Rook, deserves extra special mention. As I played and took down these higher ranked vamps, the vampire gods took notice of me, and eventually it got to a point where they felt I needed some special attention. They sent the Rook, a giant vampire who looks like he took his fashion style from early 2000s Undertaker. He teleported in and proceeded to chase me around the map as I vainly tried to put shotgun cells in his face, until he eventually pinned me in a corner and pummeled me into a bloody pulp. It seems level 7 characters should probably not take on the Rook. It will be interesting to see if he can be escaped from, or if copping a pounding until players are leveled up sufficiently to beat him is the only option. In typically Arkane fashion, these vampires aren't the traditional gothic, children of Dracula type bloodsuckers that we're all familiar with. No, these are man-made, born of science vampires that have come about because of a greedy company and its desire to chase immortality. It is actually quite the refreshing take on something that has been pretty much done to death in the media at this point. The 6 main board members of the dodgy company make up the vampire gods, and they each control a portion of the city. In my time with the game, I got to learn about one of these gods, the Hollow Man, and discover both how he came to be and his potential weaknesses. The storytelling in general felt very much like what we've experienced in previous Arkane titles, with a mix of straight up exposition, cool lore and tidbits of background information found around the map. It works well, and the writing, or what I've seen of it, seems to be on point. Assuming this holds out for the entirety of the game, we should all be in for a rollicking fun tale with some great characters and cool story beats to sink our teeth. As for how the game plays, well, once again, it is all very much in line with how other Arkane titles play. There is a weight to the weaponry that is unmistakably from the studio that created Dishonored. Their trademark mix of action and stealth is also here in spades, with the ability to approach combat situations in a host of different ways. The powers themselves are also very much part of the Arkane DNA, with one character even having the classic blink ability from Dishonored and Deathloop games. I can assure fans of the studio that were unsure that this is very much an Arkane flavoured game, despite some of the pre-release marketing perhaps not being clear on that point.
Red. You're dead, homie.
Of course, being an open world game, there has to be side activities to take part in. It is simply a given. With Redfall, these activities seem to be quite inventive and entertaining. There are the expected side missions that involve setting up new safe houses and taking down enemy outposts. There are also some very cool things that I haven't really seen before. The most notable of these is vampire nests, which exist in a kind of parallel world. When I entered one of these nests, I was tasked with reaching the centre and destroying a giant beating heart that was sustaining and growing the vampires in the world above. Upon destroying the heart, the parallel world began to collapse, so I was forced to hightail it to the nearest exit, else I get killed in the destruction. It seems like a simple concept, but the combination of the warped map design, persistent vampire attacks, and the timed element at the end of the section made it an absolute blast to play, and super satisfying to complete. Even after only 90 minutes, there feels like so much I could talk about. But honestly, I feel like it's perhaps best to wait until I have some more context and more material to compare to. I will say that if I have one worry with Redfall, it is that same worry that I have with any open world game in this day and age. That concern is how it all holds up over a long period of time. I had a blast in my 90-minute playtime, but will I still be having a blast 10, 20 or 30 hours in? It's impossible to say right now. I can't even guess. I hope that Redfall has enough meat on its bones to make the entire experience entertaining, because I feel like this is the one thing that could hold it back from being a bona fide hit. I can't wait to play more and find out one way or another, especially with friends, where I suspect this game will truly shine. Redfall lands on Xbox and PC on the 2nd of May, so I don't have long to wait to find out once and for all. And once again, thanks to Bethesda Australia for allowing me early access to see this much of the game as it is. Make sure you head over to player2.net.au to check out our written work on Redfall and everything else we have to say about games in news, reviews, previews, opinions and podcasts. Thank you for joining me, and catch me at player2.net.au.